the clap.
Oh,
Didn't even make us wait for that one. I just right into it.
Today is the last episode of the season. You thought I tricked you. I know I had you. So we're gonna be
It's
changing
a prank, you stupid idiot.
Prank. You've been pranked on Ash and Conscience Pond. So just too much tuna in your salad. I had to say it. I couldn't.
It's too much tuna fish.
There's too much tuna. So today's the last episode of season 3. We are going to take a little bit of a step back, and we are going to upgrade the podcast. There's a couple things that I want to do in general in regards to training, in regards to personal training, online training, the podcast in particular. And I think one of the things that I started to think, going through a lot of thinking phases, as I'm about to turn 30 here, and the next I think it's 10 days now. Or no, 15 days. It's halfway through, so about 15 days. And I'm thinking about the tagline, right? The BG Perform motto, tagline, mission statement, whatever you want to call it, to influence the highest standard of coaching. And looking at what I'm doing, I want to influence the highest standard, and I think that sometimes I'm not influencing the highest standard. So I want to take a little bit of a step back. Me and Jerry have some beautiful plans for the podcast coming up. We're going to revamp some things. We're going to revamp the structure, the information, the I think, the delivery of it, all of it, right?
The whole framework.
Yeah, and I'm
big shift.
excited because it's going to give us some time to take a step back, and we're going to come back hard. And when we are coming back, it won't be long, I promise. It won't be more than 3 or 4 weeks. But we're going to be planning and prepping, and we're going to be hitting this thing to the highest standard. And I want that to be very clear when we come back, whether it be the audio, the visuals, this type of thing. I want everything. We've slowly have, I'll be 100% honest, we slowly have increased, whether it be the platform we use, whether it be the cameras that we use, whether it be, the next couple things that we want to improve. But I'm excited for it. I've been thinking about it for a while. And yeah, so today is the last episode of season 3. We're not going anywhere. And if you want us to go somewhere, you're going to be don't hold your breath. That's what that is. Don't hold your breath.
You're going to be holding your breath.
You're going to be holding your breath. So today, we're going to be talking about what would we do differently. And the reason why we picked this is kind of like a culmination episode, right? We talked about a lot of different topics in this season. I think we're about 20. Actually, I think this is the 20th episode today.
Woo! What a good number.
Yeah, perfect number to end on. But we've talked about a lot of different things, whether it be the BG Perform principles, programming methodology, recovering methods, training principles, just talking about training in general, nutrition. We talked about what else? I mean, we've dove into a lot of things. The 3 movements we do for the rest of our lives: overrated,
underrated.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of different topics. And one of the ways that I think this topic fits in perfectly with today is because all of that information is almost this is almost the dream question, right? If I could go back in time and I had all the information that I have today, how would I change what I do? How would I adjust what I do? How would I make it better, right? And I think this is a question, if you truly ask yourself, I mean, I hate asking myself this because I can't, right? I can't go back in time. I can't change it. But where I want to take this is I think someone listening, whether it be an athlete, whether it be, a everyday gym goer, I think that learning from our mistakes is what's going to help you get better, right? And I was thinking about this where it's I just finished watching Invincible. If you haven't watched Invincible, watch it. It's a great show. I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, but
we're gonna have to talk about that off podcast because I'm gonna have to hear you on it. But go on.
when you know, when you're the first superhero, let's put it this way, you're a certain level, right? But then something else comes along and you got to get better and you got to level up and you got to understand more. But to a certain extent, you don't know until you know, right? And I think after a while, that second, third, fourth version of yourself is better because you've learned from the people ahead of you. And I think when you watch Invincible, it'll make a lot of sense as to how the main character learns and kind of fights and fails and does that kind of thing. But where I'm trying to go with this is that with us kind of speaking on the things that we do differently, is I'm hoping someone out there can find this podcast, listen to it, and say, cool, I'm just starting. I'm going to be a beast. And they're going to come back and they're like, this is going to be awesome because I'm not going to make these mistakes. Mm-hmm. But I also think that there's beauty and the fact that when you go in just blind, like it's just fun. Like there's no, like I remember the first couple workouts.
Ignorance is bliss, bro. That's what it is.
Literally, I think the first couple years you go into training is just ignorance is truly bliss, and you just have fun. You just do the crazy workouts, the muscle farm workouts, all that stuff, and you're just like, this is it. This is
You get the allergic reaction to that supplement you heard was so good.
Yeah.
You go to the hospital, all that stuff.
So I think starting this off is like, I'll pitch the question to Jerry first. If today, little old Jerry came back and he was stepping into the gym for the first time, what would you do differently?
Dude, I've thought about this so many times. So many times. And like I've always had this where people say I am so weird, first of all. If you haven't picked up by the bunch of episodes we've done, I'm a weird guy. So one of the things that I've always looked at is if my future or past self were to travel to the present time and try to take me out, that guy's going down. Like I'm stronger, I'm more athletic, I'm gonna ruin his life, and he's gonna wish he didn't travel in time to try and take me out. And
Who said there was a fighter? Was it Connor? Who said that?
I don't know. I've been saying it for like since I was like, dude. I think I started saying it when I was like probably 20.
No, there was a fighter who they said that to. They were like, if you like, I forgot who it was. They asked him. They're like, 2014 versus 2018. He's like, I'd whoop his ass. He's just like, straight.
That's exactly how I feel. Like
Yeah.
if my like 24-year-old me was a beast, and I remember. So like sometimes I'll be in the gym and I'll be like, oh man, that might be my last rep, and I'm like, nope, and I'll go more because it kind of brings out the inner beast in me. But if I were to have the opportunity to start over, the first thing I would do is make sure that my nutrition is dialed in, because that is the biggest struggle for me. Besides sleep, but especially as a kid. So if you're a teenager, you're living at home, food is pretty much, you're at the mercy of your parents and what they buy. For me, luckily, my mother was super receptive, and I was like, hey, can we like maybe eat more of this? And she was like, yeah, sure, honey. Yeah, I'll get that. So I was very lucky. So I think knowing what I know now, I would almost like Death Note. If you've ever seen that anime, the booklet drops down and has all this knowledge or whatever. I would drop myself a booklet with a framework, and the first thing would be to eat a certain amount of calories. At the time, would probably be around 4,000 a day, and sleep a certain amount. That's like the very first thing I would do.
All right. I think for me, the very first thing I would do is just be conscious that like, because I think early on in my fitness journey, it was very much driven by like outside validation and like wanting to lose weight and wanting to be looked at a certain way and felt like perceived a certain way. I think automatically, like I do think that brought a lot to me, and I think honestly, like I think that does drive a lot of people. Like you see how many people are successful just for the simple fact that they want to get back at somebody, or they want people to, look at them as like this higher person. And I think you can drive yourself a lot, very far with that mindset. But my head automatically goes to like knowing, like setting myself up for the next 10 years. And to be completely honest, I think very early on in my fitness career, I did realize that and learn that because I found the right people. But I think from even very early stage when I lost weight was like it was like a do or die kind of mindset where it was just I need to lose this weight. I need to do it now. I need to do it in the most extreme ways. And it really is just habits, right? And I think one of the things for me was I did it so fast. I did it so aggressively. And I did it. Like I did it. That was the biggest thing. And I think when I look back, I've said this before, but sometimes I even wonder how I did it because it was such an aggressive change in my life, right? But I think I would, specifically just tell myself to just take a breath, calm down, and do it the right way, right? Set yourself up for the next 10 years. Set yourself up for the next 20 years. Give yourself the opportunity to not rush this process, learn, understand it, because if I was going back in time and I was starting over again, I'd hopefully want to continue this path as like a career, but I would tell myself like this is going to be the rest of your life, so like just be ready for it, right? And then from there, like I think the same thing. I think the nutrition is something that all of us kind of forget to a certain extent, or we just don't understand, especially from an early age. I think that like you said, we're at the mercy of our parents for the most part. We're at the mercy of the food around us. and we have to speak up, and sometimes we just don't have those skills yet, or we just don't know, right? And I think I would straight away, be so specific on what I'm consuming, how I'm consuming it, when I'm consuming it, not to the point that it creates some type of eating disorder, but I think that I would be more strict on when and how I was eating, and the reasons that I was eating. I would be a lot more diligent on when I was just bored, when I was just eating just to eat, and those types of things, because that was a big thing for me back in the day, which was I would just eat just to eat. And I think that someone who's just tuning into this obviously is like, like Jerry said, understanding like nutrition is such a huge aspect of it, and from my end, understanding that like patience is such a big key. Like those are probably the two of the most important things, right? And then for me, I think even Jerry mentioned it, like sleep. I think sleep has never been like a huge issue for me, so I probably wouldn't like dive too much in it. I would just be more regimented with it, I think would be the word. Because like I would always just get sleep, but there was like so much fluctuation in when I would wake up or when I would go to bed, depending on what was just going on. And now I found myself where it's like, I'm in the cycle of waking up and going to bed at a certain time, no matter really what's going on outside of that. The only real difference is like sometimes if there's stuff going on the weekends or there's fights, I'll go to bed just a little bit later or maybe wake up a little bit later. But realistically, like 6 days a week at least, I'm waking up and going to bed at the same time. And I think that's something that in the grand scheme of things, like obviously with fitness, but also regular life, that it has such a positive effect on it, because it gets you in the, obviously like circadian rhythm is a real thing. Circadian rhythm is something that guides you, exponentially, essentially throughout your day, your weeks, and your months. And you can feel it when you don't. Like, I think most of us have felt that feeling where it's like, all right, we usually wake up at 6 and we get 6 hours of sleep. And sometimes we feel better than if we wake up at 8 and we get 8 hours of sleep. And it's just because like our rhythm is off. It's just we woke up at a different time. We're woke up when the sun was out versus not having the sun out, and it just feels different. So the rhythm of getting sleep dialed in, it would be something I would definitely focus on as well. And I think that, those few things right there would change me, because I think that early on I was someone who was so, again, hyper focused on doing things for reasons that may not have been the best intentions for myself, and more about validation from others, and doing it in a way where I was just kind of restricting food in a really strict way, right? And doing it for the first time, I had these huge adaptations from it, and because I was going so aggressively, it worked, right? But like, if I went back and saw how I lost weight, I would never recommend it to somebody, right? I did it the right way, but I did it so aggressively, and I was doing so much at the time that I just wouldn't recommend it for sustainability and long-term success, right? I don't think it was wrong. I think it worked, obviously, and it's worked. I've kept it off. But I think that it's something that we need to be a little bit more mindful of in the beginning, or I should have been a little bit more mindful of in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that those two things, like sleep and nutrition, are obviously super important, and they're pretty much the foundation of your recovery. I think that the reason that, for me, like I think the reasons that I was working out is I remember just seeing people like Arnold. Steve Cook was like one of my biggest inspirations when I first started. I remember seeing him and be like, dude, I want to look like that guy so bad. And I remember like I would be in the gym and my schedule was regimented. Like I remember I was playing Call of Duty with like my best friends on COD, and they were like, all right, one more game, and I was like, nope, I cut it at 11:30. I'm going to bed. I gotta wake up at 7:30. That's when I go and I lift. And they're like, oh, you can't do one more, and I was like, no. And I was super regimented, which was awesome. So like I was doing it for the right reasons, and I was doing it the right way. I just think that the information I had was old school. Like how you were saying you were eating just to eat. I was eating whatever because I knew I needed calories.
Yeah.
And that was just the wrong way to do it. Like that, and so many people at the gym were like, bro, you just got to do it. Just eat whatever, man. And I was like, all right, well, this dude's huge. I should listen to him. And like looking back, like it didn't set me up for success in any way. So I think going about the nutrition is literally the weakest link in the chain for me.
And I think like it kind of goes into the next part, because I think like if you looked at a roadmap of fitness, right? If you looked at a roadmap of how someone would be successful inside of the gym from start to finish, or start to where they're at now, it's literally these things. It's setting yourself up for success by understanding this is going to be a process, right? This is not something that in 6 months you're gonna, hit these insane numbers, and you will at a young age, especially for a young kid, boy, right? Like a young boy, they got testosterone flowing, and like how it feels when you got all that energy in the world, and you could lift 400 pounds and not feel it the next day, right? And
So
I
you
think
literally felt like you got superpowers for the first time.
literally,
It was a good
I'm
feeling.
not just because I don't like. I'm trying not to buy it because I've had so many people who are older be like, oh, wait till you turn 30, wait till you turn 40, wait till you turn X and X, and like I don't want to buy into that because I don't want that to be something in my head. But as you get older, you just don't recover as well, right? You take a hit and you need another day, right? You need a little bit of extra time. So it's just part of the process, and I think that's setting yourself up for success in that way of understanding early on. You don't do that unnecessary damage to your body. That's what sets you up for when you're 30 and 40 and 50, right? I think when you talk to all the people that say that, oh, back in my day with lifting, like you usually ask them about their lifting program and it was absurd or it was just dumb. It was like, yeah, we're doing 10
Yeah, buddy.
yeah, Ronnie Coleman, like Ronnie Coleman, like, and you could have the argument that's why he's going to be remembered for the rest of eternity. But in the same breath, he can't walk now. So it's like, I don't know. It really depends on the type of person you want to be and how you want to be remembered. Because I'm not going to say he's wrong for what he did because he's got some fucking bangers and he's that dude when it comes to lifting weights. So I think that's it. And I think that like when you look at a roadmap, it starts literally at that patience. It starts with sleep. It starts with nutrition. And then obviously like talking about progression of how you'd lift, right? I think for me, I loved the way that I don't know that I would change much outside of having the information of how to structure it better, because I think that bodybuilding early is just the thing you do, right? And I will say this now is not probably as common that people do that because there are other things, but I think bodybuilding in its core is the most important thing you could do for fitness, right? Because I truly think it's something that you could do for the rest of your life, and it truly is healthy. And I don't necessarily love the flack that bodybuilding gets because it's seen as like this, like they love the word functional, but like unfunctional thing where you're working on isolation. And then realistically, like if you're doing, basic bodybuilding, then yes, it's probably not going to help you, in regards to athletic training or whatever. But there's so many great principles inside of bodybuilding that carry over into every other aspect of fitness. And it's literally built everything that we know, right? Like bodybuilding was what essentially built the rest of fitness, or at least like helped us build the rest of fitness.
It's the foundation, man.
Yeah, and I think that like again, it's that thing that whether you're 20, whether you're 15, whether you're 70, like it's there and you can do it in some capacity, right? I think with everything else, like there is the idea of like, and let me just say this, 20 or 70 and you can do it at a pretty high level, right? Like a pretty high level. Now there's going to be, arguments to this because I know there is CrossFitters and maybe now, High Rocks, but High Rocks and things like that where there's going to be people who do that to a very old age, and CrossFit was probably the first one where you're like, wow, this 70-year-old is doing CrossFit, right? Mm-hmm. And essentially if you really look at the program, it's like just a little bit faster bodybuilding, and it's just that kind of thing where it's like true CrossFit is, essentially these aspects of Olympic weightlifting and bodybuilding and, endurance sports put into one, and it's mixed modal training, and it's all these different pieces. And I think that like that's what makes it special. So for me, I started out with bodybuilding-ish things in the gym, and then we kind of went to that like power builder split or whatever you used to, what they call it, like power, like
the
power
split?
building.
Or are you
Power
talking about
building,
CrossFit?
like where you're doing like power lifting and bodybuilding, like that was
power building, power building. That's the whole Mike O'Hearn thing.
Yeah, like Mike O'Hearn, Bradley Marion, like that kind of like age for it. So, and I think like that was the next progression for me. And then I got into CrossFit, and I think CrossFit's would really changed my outlook on fitness and changed a lot of things for me. So like I personally probably wouldn't change. I think I wish I gave CrossFit more of my attention. And I think I wish when I went into CrossFit, I carried more of the principles that I had from the other aspects into it. And I think even now, like it's something that I still take pieces from. I don't know that I would ever go back to fully doing CrossFit, but like there's a lot of benefits I've gotten and things that I've improved in my fitness and in my life from learning CrossFit, whether it be movement capacity, what's the word I'm looking for? Intelligence, I guess, like understanding more patterns, understanding gymnastics, Olympic weightlifting, endurance sports. Like it opened up such a different, bigger world to me that kind of showed me all the aspects of fitness and put it in a way that was like, okay, you can do everything, you know, and this is the way to do it, right? But you can still have those pieces. And I think like truly, if you want to be good at CrossFit, you need bodybuilding and you need powerlifting and you need, because CrossFit essentially is like, I have this conversation all the time, but it's like CrossFit's, people who complain about CrossFit are it's like you're bringing a soccer ball into a baseball field, right? It's like, it's a sport. It's something that people do competitively. Like, yes, kipping pull-ups aren't the best, but it's like, you're also not going to bring a soccer ball into a baseball field because it just doesn't make sense.
It's specific to the sport.
The kipping pull-up is a piece of CrossFit that's specific to the sport, right? So to say it doesn't work or it's like you're just not understanding what it is, really. But to get better, truly better at CrossFit, and this was something that happened, was a lot of people jumped right into CrossFit, and then they were like, wait, like the people who were really good at CrossFit were still doing powerlifting cycles, and they were still doing bodybuilding cycles, and they were still doing endurance cycles, and they were working on these pieces. They weren't just doing CrossFit. So, you know, this is where I started to learn, and I wish I did it more, was like I had these principles from powerlifting and bodybuilding that I wish I carried over sooner into CrossFit, because it probably would have allowed me to do it at like, you know, I wouldn't say a high level, but like the level I was for a little bit longer before I burnt out and like just didn't feel good doing it, right? So I wouldn't say I would change much about like the progression of where I went within fitness, but I think I would just change the details of it and the structure of it.
I don't know if you could hear the neighborhood children just pretending they're in Squid Game, so I apologize if you guys hear children screaming red light, green light. But and then it sounds like one of them is screaming like they're a cat being skinned. But you know, that is children. We missed that era. So I would agree with you, Brandon. I think that like I remember when CrossFit came around, that was when we had a lot of new faces to like a lot of new people to look up to. Like Matt Fraser is easily like
Rich Froning.
Yeah, Rich Froning, and then honestly one of our favorites, Marcus Philly. Like
Marcus Philly, the go.
Yeah, all those people just had like this new look, this new physique, this new ability to perform that it was very intriguing, and that was like a big spark for me too. I think
when you looked at it, it was like, you know, a guy like Rich Froning was one of the first people that could snatch 200-300 pounds, squat 300-400 pounds, bench 2, you know, high twos, you know, could do 50 unbroken pull-ups, could do 30 unbroken ring muscle ups, could do a 6.5 minute mile, and that's just like that is fitness, like truly. And that's where it's like, I think that when you talk about fitness, I think that CrossFit athletes truly are that. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I think that how you said like where you would change for your roadmap, I think I would truly keep mine the same at the beginning. I wouldn't, because I had such a passion for the bodybuilding side of things. The only thing I would really tell myself is to not be afraid to do more cardio, because again, these old heads in the gym were just like, hey, don't run, don't do this, don't do that, lift and go rest. Like, you don't need cardio, you're going to go catabolic. And it's like, I'm going to lose my muscle if I work out. Like, all that stuff, I was, like, terrified. So I would tell myself, like, listen, keep doing your endurance stuff. Keep doing your sprints. It's going to keep you, like, lean. But on top of that, like, it'll help your overall health. You'll be able to withstand higher rep schemes in the gym because of your aerobic capacity and your ability to withstand that high heart rate in lifting. Yeah. And going into like one step further, my fitness journey really changed when I was in my internship at Next Level in New York, and I started training more like an athlete. And that's when the cardio started to come back into my, because I was still doing bodybuilding stuff. I took the athletic movements that I was giving to all of our athletes, and I would put them in like more of that hypertrophy rep range, which again can be pretty much anywhere. They've found now is like, as long as you're close to failure, you're getting to where you need to be. But Brandon's hitting that ping over there, just clubbing. I thought it was inside my head for a second. But I started taking those movements that were made for athletics, and I started not made for athletics, but I started putting them more in a bodybuilding scheme, but I added the cardio component to it, and my fitness went through the roof. And if I had only started that a little bit sooner, even like 5 years, I can't imagine where I would be.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for like all of the knowledge that I've gained along the way, because I've seen where I've fallen short in the past. And although I've gotten really far knowing as little as I knew, thinking I knew a lot, I think where I was at fundamentally, again, with the discipline and the ability to just show up and get the work done, I wouldn't change much besides the cardio component, because I really had it dialed in.
Yeah, I think as you're talking, like, I think one of the only things I would change is I would like do it for like a specific period of time, right? So I would do like bodybuilding for 2 years, and then I would do like powerlifting for 2 years, and then I would go into like CrossFit while maintaining those other two aspects of it, because I think that like you learn so much about your body in bodybuilding, and then you learn so much about output and strength and that type of thing in powerlifting, and then in CrossFit you learn how to just basically put everything together and become an athlete, right? And I think there's obviously pieces of CrossFit that are, from what I've learned in strength and conditioning, I think there's pieces that CrossFit doesn't have that I would implement now as well, and it would be a totally different game, and it would probably change the course of like a CrossFit athlete, right?
Yeah.
And I think that like outside of that stuff, I think because, you know, I think most of us, you know, when we talk about fitness, there's a lot of things we could talk about and change, but I think like one of the other things that I would probably think about outside of that is like lifestyle stuff, right? Like, you know, understanding the lifestyle of fitness and becoming more of what I am today in regards to like the coach or the enthusiast of fitness. Like, I don't know, like dedicated to the craft and learning about it. And I would dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that I maybe missed out on early in the process, right? And I think I did a really good job of learning, obviously, because it got me to this level. But I think it was very much, you know, hopping on to stuff. It was like, oh, bodybuilding's the thing, powerlifting's the thing, CrossFit's the thing, and I was on those things more. And in the pieces of it, you know, especially when I got to CrossFit, I was like, you know, bodybuilding's not useful, it's not functional. I kind of got into that little mindset of it, and then you know, there was other things that I started to do. And, you know, I wasn't one of those people that was, you know, there's some of these CrossFitters, me and Nick joke about this all the time, but it's like, you know, CrossFitters were like this weird group of people that were like, if you were faster than them or better conditioned, they're like, boy, I bet you can't squat 300 pounds. And then if you were like stronger than them, they're like, I bet you he can't walk up flight of stairs.
Like, listen, dude, we all have our strong suits. Calm down.
It's just like there's these like those CrossFitters that are just like in the middle and average at everything, but not like amazing at anything else. And I think that like that was something I never got into, but I think that it would be more of that understanding that like fitness is a lifestyle, right? And it embodies all of these different aspects. It embodies the sleep, the nutrition, the successful aspects of yourself, the you know, the lifestyle of what you do in the gym, and giving yourself time to learn, giving yourself time to feel and grow and adapt, and all of it, right? And I think that for me, like the lifestyle thing is like it kind of, like I said, it embodies all of this. So it's a little bit more of like it covers every single piece of the puzzle rather than like I'm going to do anything different. But I think that the lifestyle portion of this truly is just like being a better person inside of the gym and allowing yourself to just understand that this is something that can literally change your life. And you need to not just do this inside the gym, but take it outside of the gym as well.
Yeah, I think the whole idea with the CrossFitter who's kind of a jack of all trades, that's something that little competition, like, oh, I bet you can't do this. Oh, well, you don't need that. Oh, well, that's not important. That's huge in fitness, to the point where people will look at you if you use straps on like your last set of a deadlift. Some people are like, oh, I never use straps. Straps are for weaklings. Like, It's all about grip strength. Why don't you want to strengthen your grip? It's like, dude, if you've ever been rock climbing, you know you can only do it for so long. Like, you're gonna fry your grip quick. So obviously you can make it stronger and everything, but to frown upon like certain areas of fitness is something that I fell victim to. Like I heard those strap guys, like, cause I used to use straps, and like people for a little bit were like, you shouldn't use that, like it's not. And I was like, well, shit, now I'm doing this thing wrong. So I would try and change it, and I fell victim to it, and I would look at other areas of fitness and be like, well, that's stupid, or yo, you don't need that. And just, I think the lifestyle thing that I would change is understanding that every aspect of fitness has strong suits.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might have and they might have little areas where I don't agree with everything in every little aspect of fitness, but there are strong suits to each part of fitness, and it's okay to cherry pick from each one. And that's one thing that I do now. I take some CrossFit aspects, I take some bodybuilding aspects, some even like powerlifting aspects. I'll throw into my programming, and I'll help people with a bunch of different areas. And I think that that's the one thing I would change is more of the mindset in the lifestyle of fitness. Like, you don't have to be stuck to one thing. You can do more than one thing. It's okay to have an opinion that differs from everybody in each little zone.
Yeah. No, I like it, and I think it's a really good one. And I think the only last thing we kind of like talked about was accountability. And I think that for me, I will say this. I think for me, I am someone who like, I'm not a loner. I tend to be more extroverted than I am introverted. But I think with some of the stuff, there's some things that just like I enjoy doing and working out. Besides a couple people, Jerry being one of them, like I enjoy working out on my own. Now I think accountability is huge, and I think that early on, I would have rather picked or utilized accountability more, because I think there was a lot of times where I was just like, it's on me, it's on me, it's on me type thing. And that gets hard, it gets hard when you put everything on yourself. And like, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in the past, I'd say even last 6 months to a year, most importantly, is like to not like, not getting religious, but like, if you put all this stuff on your shoulders of life, like specifically, and like, it's going to be heavy, right? But if you kind of give it up to whatever you believe and you have faith and you put it to everything else, like life is it's going to feel a lot lighter, right? And it's going to feel a lot more enjoyable and nicer to be in. And I think that accountability is that, right? Accountability is not, it's not taking the weight of the world off of your shoulders per se, but it's allowing someone else to be a person for you that can guide you or help you, right? Or just kind of get you through those tough days, or know that, someone is there doing it with you or struggling with you, whether it be from afar, whether it be right next to you, whether it be, whatever it might be. But I think that like accountability is huge. I think that accountability and having people to know if you don't have it, right? I think for me, I think one of my biggest, strongest aspects of my life has been keeping myself accountable in a lot of ways, right? Whether it be doing the work, I've for the most part for the last 8 years, I've had my own business, and it's like, if I don't do it, nobody does it, right? And I can't tell you the last time I've missed more than 3 days in a row of a workout since I started losing weight, right? Outside of maybe being sick a couple times, but I just don't know. I can't tell you specifically the last time that I missed like more than 3 days in a row. And to me, like, that's accountability of myself. But I also think that, like, again, knowing there's people, and like, I get kind of like, in a lot of ways, accountability in reverse, where it's like, I know people are counting on me to be that person. So it's like, I have to be that person in a lot of ways. I have to keep myself accountable. And ever since the beginning, when I first started this journey, I knew I wanted to be that type of person. So I couldn't rely on accountability. I had to rely on keeping myself accountable, right? And I think those are a couple different things. But I think for a lot of people early on in this journey, if you can find someone who's there and can guide you, or not even guide you, but just be there and help you, and know that like they're doing the same work, because I think those are hard to find. I really do think there's very few people that you can come across that can hold you accountable, keep you accountable, and be by your side, and I've been lucky to find probably like 3 or 4 total in my life, right? And I think there's aspects of it that when you find them, you do it, right? And it's like, even with Jerry, for example, like, he holds me accountable in a lot of ways, and he's someone, like, one of the few people I found that could keep me accountable, or is able to kind of push me in that way. My friend Nick is someone who keeps me accountable. I've had a couple other people in my life that have kept me accountable, and I think that like those types of things are so crucial to the point that like it sets you up like so far down the line to know that someone's there grinding with you that it makes those hard days like not so hard, right? And I think like even when I'm training now, it's like I know Nick's going to the gym. I know Nick's gonna push me. I know Nick's gonna be there. You know, hopefully one of these days I'm gonna be fucking working out with this dude because I need to work out with this dude. We'll figure it out. But
Oh my
you know,
god, I
that's
can't put the
something that,
biceps in the screen. My bad.
yeah. So I think that's like a huge aspect for people. And like again, I'm not claiming because I've never personally needed the accountability partner, but I know what it's like to have accountability, and I do. It does make the process more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that I always did really well in the beginning, because my best friend Frank, shout out to Frankie, first lifting
Yeah.
buddy, he was one of those people that I was always,
I remember you
always
always
lifting
that
with.
Frankie was like a big part for you. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like we were always lifting together, and we always joked that if we did like the fusion dance from Dragon Ball Z, where we became like one person, we'd be the ultimate athlete, because all of his weaknesses in the gym are all of my strengths, and all of my strengths are all of his weaknesses, and it's just we were able to push each other to a limit that I don't think we would have reached alone.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the key in like the perfect lifting partner. Like that's one of those, like Brandon, you said you love to lift alone. Like you do really well with it. I'm the same way, because when I am lifting, I'm very serious about it. If you see me in the gym and you see my face, you might think that I have bodies in my basement. I look like a serial killer. I'm just like this. In between each set, just dead, no emotion. I'm just staring. Like it looks like I'm staring into somebody's soul, but no one's in front of me. That is the level of intensity I bring to some of my workouts, and it's not like I'm doing it like trying to find a dark place. It's just like, this is what I'm here for. I'm enjoying this, and it's my peace. It's my Zen time. But having someone there who's just like, dude, you had an extra rep. Don't be a little bitch. Like, come on.
I think I'll say
That-
this. I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
You're right. I think I'm just putting this out there so I don't lose a thought. Running has been a huge piece for me because I just never really enjoyed running like that. Like if it wasn't for Nick, there would probably have been a lot less running in my
Like moments where you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna stop early.
Yeah. But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. It's because that's the whole thing is like, I've had lifts where I know I've felt like shit, and I've looked over at Frank, and I look over, we're in the car, and I go like this, and he's like, I'm like, yo, you good? He's like, I'm so tired. And we get to the gym, and we did it anyway. And we would lift heavy, we would support each other, we'd push each other, and that was one of those things that I always did right. And I want to find a lifting buddy. That's something that I think I want. But
Yeah,
it's
imagine if you
again,
had one.
there's what?
Imagine if you could find a lifting buddy.
That's hey now. You're gonna have to come visit me. Not bad.
Not bad.
That's essentially like you have to be careful of who you choose, because while you could have someone like a Frank who's always pushing you to the limit, being your support, being the person to hold you accountable, you also might end up with give me a random name.
What?
Scott. I thought of Scott because we use Scott as the last makeup name.
John
Let's say Scott's your lifting buddy, and he's like, man, I'm tired today. We should just skip. John Cena's your lifting buddy. And he's like, man, I'm tired today. Let's skip. That's not your lifting buddy. Like you need to find someone who's like, all right, dude, let's do it. I know we're both tired, but let's get it done. You need to find somebody who supports you, somebody who is ready to just continue to grind, and somebody who has goals and is excited to reach their goals as you are to reach yours, and excited for you to reach your goals just as much as they are for them to hit their own goal. That's like the key to a perfect accountability buddy.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think like to kind of summarize this all, I think someone who's new who might be listening to this, and you might have already started, you might have already started in the gym, you might be, kind of on this path already, you might be a year in, you might be 2 years in. I think there's still a lot of things you can implement inside this journey, and I think like you could ask this question now because you really have just started, to be completely honest. And I think that like even now it's a question I can ask myself so I can continue that for the next 20 years, like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Hopefully I live another 50 years, but we'll see. But, I want to make sure that like in that time I'm taking even this question and doing it. Cause like essentially, I'm not starting over, but like I can implement this stuff, and that's something that like I've thought about. And it's like, when I write these new programs and I write things that I'm doing, it's all the experience I've had, and it's essentially from that point of like I can do all of this and I can implement all of this in a beautiful program, and I do. And I think that, for someone who's new, someone who's just starting out in the fitness industry, like these are superpowers essentially, right? Like you're learning from people who have fucking done it and hurt themselves and made mistakes and again could have done better and had things that like they I wouldn't say regret, but like that they wish they could have done a little bit better. And now is a time for you to take it, feel it, and utilize it, right? Like use it in your programming. If from all the things we said today, I hope there's something that's in there that can guide you on the path forward to improve your fitness and give you a little bit more direction as to like taking your time and learning and taking this for what it is, and it's like a lifestyle, right? And I think you can agree with that. Like, really at the end of the day, I think there's understanding this is a lifestyle and not rushing this process, but enjoying it, right? Like I think for me personally, like I think those fuck ups are like fun stories. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like, I just think like they're fun stories. There's things where it's like, I shouldn't have been doing it. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes not knowing gives you better results when you're like, you don't care about RPEs and sets and reps and tempos and load management. You're just like, I'm tired. I just slammed a fucking caffeine drink and I'm going to deadlift 400 pounds. I don't care who tells me otherwise, right?
Yep.
And you just do it. And there's no questions. There's no... like I said, there's nothing that goes on outside of it. It's just like you just go and do it. And I think that's such a beautiful thing inside of fitness. And I think I almost think to a certain extent, like you have to have that to truly be, to have that almost like that badge of honor of like, I just did it. Then you can start learning, honestly.
And
then you can be like, all right, I did the fun part. Now it's time to learn.
To say like going on to what you said about those fuck ups, like they're good gym stories, but they also shaped us. Like I know my path, I wasn't sure where I wanted to go in the fitness industry. Oh, it shaped me, all right. Look at those traps, bro. Hollywood style. Tom Hardy. I ADD. I wanted to be in the fitness industry, and I didn't know what capacity. I was so interested in nutrition for a little bit. I was interested in physical therapy. I was interested in personal training. And literally everything about the fitness industry I was super passionate about. But if it wasn't for me tearing my rotator cuff and seeing what I was doing wrong in my workouts prior to that tear, I don't know if I would be on the same path I am now. Maybe, but I also know a lot about shoulder health and how to rehab shoulders, and I know a lot about my own shoulders and my own health, that I think it was one of those things where with that bicep pump, I was in the shower and I was trying to wash my back quick so I could watch Game of Thrones and go to bed. I would be the guy to be like, let him do it. Let him tear his rotator cuff.
Just
like it's
yourself.
What?
Just watching yourself do it. Be like,
just be like, watch what this idiot's gonna do. You're gonna hear it. Ready? Listen. Shh. And they went, and I was like, oh no. That's one of those moments where I'll never forget the tears that came to my eye when I was able to work out properly again with no pain. Yeah. Those moments make us who we are. So that I will say I wouldn't change.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a question to be answered, but I also think it's like more of a reflection, right? It's just more of a understanding of like we've talked about so many things in this season of like the podcast. I think we've gone over so many aspects, and all of it is learning. All of it are aspects you can kind of take into this episode and listen to this last one and be like, all right, well, like, yeah, I think you're right. Like there's so much we've talked about and discussed, whether it be training methodologies and principles and reps and sets and nutrition and exercises and overrated, under, like all of it is just like, that's literally everything we've talked about today. And that's what's kind of made us who we are as trainers and coaches and just people. And, would we change it? I don't know. I guess maybe not. But like, if I was to go through, I'd probably be a little bit leaner, a little bit stronger, a little bit, have some better records, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But if you just want to like bypass all of this, just take steroids. Just
hey, little guy, check this out.
No, but seriously though, like you can just bypass all of this if you don't want to listen. But I'm not recommending that way. But
Not bad.
No. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like I said, today is going to be the last episode of this season. We're going to take a couple weeks. We're going to revamp this thing. We're coming back with I wouldn't say a new product, just a better product overall. Mm-hmm. And I'm super excited. And there's going to be updates all around. And I'm really excited to work on this. And yeah, so I appreciate you guys for tuning in, sticking with us. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.